My name is Walter Green, 61 years old, retired steel contractor, and apparently too old to understand my own money. That's what my son Derek told me the night before my birthday. We were sitting in my living room, the same one I built with these hands 40 years ago, walls lined with pictures of job sites, union plaques, and a wedding photo that's fading faster than my patience. He came in wearing his $1,000 suit, carrying a gift bag that probably cost more than what was inside. "Dad," he said, all smiles and charm, "I've got something that'll make your life easier." He handed me a folder wrapped in gold ribbon. Inside was a packet labeled Green Legacy Investment Portfolio. "What's this?" "Your retirement, upgraded," he said. "It's time you let me manage your funds. I've got new accounts with better returns. Safe, secure, perfectly legal." Derek was 32, a financial advisor for a mid-tier investment firm downtown. Smart kid, sharp dresser. But somewhere between ambition and arrogance, he forgot how to speak like a son. "I've managed fine on my own," I said. "Been paying my bills since you were in diapers." "Yeah," he said, smirking. "But times have changed. You still write checks, Dad. Nobody writes checks anymore. Let me modernize your life." That word, modernize, sounded more like replace. He leaned forward, voice dropping. "You've got almost $1 million just sitting there. Don't you think it's wasted if you die before it grows?" That hit like a hammer to the ribs. Not the money, the "if you die" part. He said it casually, like a line from a commercial. I closed the folder. "Appreciate it, son, but I'll stick with what's working." He laughed, low and sharp. "You're lucky I'm even offering. Most guys my age would let their dads rot in paperwork." He finished his drink, stood up, and clapped my shoulder. "Think about it. You've got until Thanksgiving. After that, you're on your own." When he left, the house went quiet except for the clock ticking over the mantel, a gift from my late wife, Eleanor. She always said time tells the truth faster than people do. I didn't know it yet, but that folder on my table wasn't just paper. It was a fuse, and my son had just lit it. Thanksgiving came with cold wind, dry turkey, and the kind of fake laughter that could chip teeth. We were all gathered at my daughter's house. Me, Derek, his wife Claire, and my grandkids, who were too busy with their tablets to notice the tension. Eleanor used to host these dinners, warm and noisy and full of forgiveness. This one felt like a board meeting with better food. Derek carved the turkey like he was closing a deal. "So, Dad," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "did you finally transfer your accounts? Or are you still keeping your fortune in a coffee can?" Forks paused mid-air. Even Claire gave him a warning glance. "My money's fine where it is," I said. "Right," he said, smirking. "Earning less than inflation. You realize your portfolio's practically decomposing, right?" I felt every eye at that table turn toward me. "I've managed for 40 years without your help." "Yeah," he said, chuckling. "And now you're managing to lose value every month." He lifted his glass. "To Dad, the only man who thinks checking balances at the credit union counts as investing." Laughter followed. Not cruel, but uncomfortable. The kind that makes you wish you'd stayed home. Even my daughter Megan smiled weakly. "He's just teasing, Dad." "Sure he is," I said, my voice steady. "That's what sons do, mock the hands that paid their tuition." The table went silent again. Derek leaned back, unconcerned. "You could have doubled that retirement if you'd listened to me," he said. "But hey, if you want to die broke, that's your call." That word again. Die. He said it like he was reading a spreadsheet, not talking to his father. I looked at him, really looked. The expensive watch, the forced charm, the ego that had grown bigger than gratitude. He'd learned how to smile while cutting people open. I stood slowly. You're right, Derek. I am old, but I'm not stupid. And you just told me everything I needed to know about who you've become. He shrugged, still grinning. Just trying to help, Dad. You already have, I said, walking toward the door. The sound of the door closing behind me was louder than any applause. Back home, I poured myself a drink and opened the folder he'd given me 2 months earlier. The fine print looked different this time. Too confident, too detailed. The kind of paperwork written by someone who'd already signed for you. The following Monday, I drove to Redline Financial, the firm where Derek worked. One of those glass front buildings that looked more like a tech startup than a place to hold people's futures. I didn't call first. I wanted to see his reaction raw. The receptionist smiled politely. Do you have an appointment? Tell Derek Green his father's here. He'll want to see me. Her smile faltered. 5 minutes later, Derek appeared, irritation already visible beneath the corporate grin. Dad, what are you doing here? Reading fine print, I said. I brought the folder. He sighed, guiding me toward his office. All clean lines, minimalist decor, and a shelf full of awards he probably bought himself. Look, if this is about Thanksgiving, let's not make a scene. It's about these, I interrupted, sliding the papers across his desk. You said this was just a proposal, but according to this clause, you've already executed transfers under my name. He blinked, then forced a laugh. That's just standard language, Dad. Nothing's final without your authorization. Then why did my credit union balance drop to $2,000? For the first time, his expression cracked. What? He said too quickly. That's not possible. It's not just possible, I said, leaning forward. It's done. I opened my phone, showing him the balance. The account I'd built over 4 decades of 4 a.m. shifts and backbreaking labor now read $2,410.32. He tried to hide the panic, failed, then recovered with arrogance. Dad, investments fluctuate. I moved the money into a short-term liquidity fund. It's all still yours. Then why's my signature on the authorization emails? That froze him. You probably clicked something by accident. Digital paperwork's tricky for people your age. That line, people your age, stung more than the missing money. I stood slowly. You forged my name, I said quietly. And you think you're smarter than me. Dad, calm down. You're making wild accusations. No, I said, pocketing the folder. I'm just confirming them. He followed me out of the office, whispering harshly so his co-workers wouldn't hear. If you go digging, you'll embarrass both of us. Just trust me. You burned that word, Derek, I said without turning. Now I'm going to see what it's really worth. As I stepped into the parking lot, a single phrase kept echoing in my mind. Something my old union foreman used to say. Paperwork is the battlefield where liars lose. The next morning, I drove to Desert Federal Credit Union, the same bank I'd used since 1982, back when tellers still knew your kids' names and shook your hand before handing you a receipt. The woman behind the counter, Marcia, had been there since my construction days. She frowned when she saw my account pulled up on her screen. Walter, she said softly, when did you authorize these wire transfers? What transfers? 3 in total. $40,000 to a brokerage in Delaware. Then 2 more, each over $200,000, to a firm called Green Ridge Holdings. I felt my stomach tighten. Print everything, I said. She slid over the records, one page after another. My name signed perfectly in blue digital ink. My handwriting, but not my hand. We also have voice authorization files, she said, apparently verified by security questions. You mean somebody answered them right? I thanked her and walked out with the papers shaking in my hand. The Arizona sun hit like a spotlight. Everything suddenly too bright, too loud. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. I picked up the landline and called a number I hadn't dialed in years. Internal Revenue Service, Fraud Division. Cal Harris, please, I said. Tell him it's Walter Green, the old guy who still writes checks. There was a pause, then a laugh I recognized immediately. Walter? You alive, you stubborn bastard? Barely. My son's trying to bury me under fake investments. Oh, hell, he muttered. Come by tomorrow. Bring everything. Cal had been my crew chief before he joined the IRS. Smart, loyal, and allergic to corruption. His office downtown was a maze of folders, coffee cups, and evidence bins. When I laid the papers in front of him, he whistled low. This ain't amateur hour, he said. That Delaware brokerage is a shell, and Greenridge Holdings? Never heard of it. Probably his front company. He forged my name, Cal. My own son. Then we'll bury him right back. But we'll do it legal. He turned his monitor toward me, pulling up data. Look here. See that routing number? It matches a flagged account. Fraud case pending. Guess who's been wiring them money? He highlighted the name. Derek Green, right there in government text, black and bold. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I exhaled slow. What do we do now? We let him dig the hole deeper. Then we drop him in it with receipts. As I left, Cal handed me a flash drive. Back up everything you've got. Trust me, Walt. Greed always leaves fingerprints. That night, I sat in my quiet house surrounded by papers, ledgers, and betrayal. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because now, the game was mine. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't end with the thief. It spreads, quiet as smoke, until even the ones who love you start coughing on lies. 3 days after meeting Cal, I learned Derek had already made his next move. My medical insurance card stopped working at the pharmacy. The clerk said, "Sir, your supplemental coverage was canceled. Looks like your son's listed as the account manager." 2 days later, my mortgage autopay bounced, despite me owning the house outright since 2009. I called the credit union again. "A hold was placed on your accounts due to verification disputes," Marcia said. "Someone reported unusual activity." "Yeah," I muttered. "That someone's my son." By the weekend, word spread through the family. Megan called first. "Dad, Derek said you've been making questionable withdrawals. He's worried you're confused about your finances." That one hit harder than losing $1. "He said what?" "He's just trying to help," she said carefully. "You've been under stress since Mom died. Maybe let him handle things for a while." I didn't yell, didn't argue, just sat there in my recliner, listening to my own daughter gently side with the thief wearing a suit. That night, I went to the garage and stared at my old Ford F-150, the truck Eleanor and I bought after our first big contract. The registration sticker was expired, the gas tank half full. I posted it for sale online before I could change my mind. A man from Mesa bought it the next morning, cash in hand. I watched him drive away with a part of my past. And for the first time in decades, I felt small. By Monday, my phone stopped ringing. No calls, no visits. Derek had done what all manipulators do, cut me off so he could control the story. But grief has its uses. It burns everything unnecessary away until only one thing remains: clarity. So I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began scanning every page Cal had given me. Bank statements, routing logs, tax filings. Every penny Derek had rerouted was traceable. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Cal. IRS opened preliminary inquiry. Keep quiet. He doesn't know yet. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Derek thought he'd humiliated me, painted me as a senile old man who'd lost control. But he forgot what age gives you that youth never does. Patience. And patience in the right hands becomes a weapon sharper than greed. Sleep became optional that week. When your child robs you blind and then paints you as senile, rest feels like surrender. But somewhere between the bitterness and the silence, something inside me snapped. Not the kind that breaks, the kind that locks in. Thursday morning, I drove to Cal's office downtown. He was hunched over a monitor, sleeves rolled up, coffee gone cold. He turned as I walked in. "You look like hell," he said. "Been busy learning how to weaponize a scanner." I handed him a folder. 50 pages of bank activity, all neatly color-coded by date and recipient. He flipped through, eyebrows lifting. "You actually traced the routing trails?" "Every one. The withdrawals, the Delaware account, even a Cayman Island transfer. $500,000 gone last week." "Jesus, Walt, you're doing half my job for me." He leaned closer to the screen, typing fast. "Okay, listen. IRS Fraud Division is officially tracking Derek's shell companies now. They won't move yet, but they're watching." I exhaled slowly. "So what do I do?" "You stay calm. Let him keep playing confident. Arrogance always leaves receipts." That line stuck with me. That night, I sat in my living room with Eleanor's picture on the mantel and poured 2 glasses of bourbon, one for her, one for the ghost of the man I used to be. Then I opened a notebook and wrote across the top, "Operation Patience. Step 1, let Derek think he won. Step 2, record everything. Step 3, deliver it when the IRS is ready to strike." I bought a pocket recorder from Best Buy and started carrying it everywhere. Church, grocery store, even family brunch when Megan insisted I join. It didn't take long. Derek showed up that Sunday all smiles, acting like nothing had happened. "Dad, I talked to the bank," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You really shouldn't be making large withdrawals without me. It looks suspicious." I smiled, the recorder running quietly in my pocket. "Appreciate the advice, son. You always were good with numbers." He laughed, oblivious. "That's why I handle your accounts now. You're safe with me." Those words, "you're safe with me," went straight into my evidence file. By the time he left, my notebook had 4 new entries and a date circled in red, March 14th. Cal's next message came that night. "We're close. Build your case. When the time comes, we'll bury him in his own spreadsheets." I closed the notebook and whispered to Eleanor's photo, "You'd be proud, hun. I finally learned how to fight without swinging." By early March, Derek thought I was finished. The old man playing checkers while he ran a chess game with 6 zeros on the board. But what he didn't know was that I'd been meeting every Wednesday morning with Cal and Agent Renee Valdez, the IRS investigator assigned to Derek's case. Renee was sharp, no nonsense, the kind of woman who could read a tax return like a confession. "Your son's built 3 fake LLCs in Delaware," she said, flipping through a file. "Each one funnels investor deposits to his personal brokerage. Classic laundering pattern. We just need timing, a live transfer, to tie him to the fraud in real time." "You'll get it," I said. "He's too proud to stop." The plan came together on her whiteboard, written like a military operation. Step 1, Derek schedules a client presentation mid-month to show new investors growth projections. Step 2. Cal monitors the wire system for outgoing transfers. Step 3. I attend the presentation under the guise of reconciliation, wearing a discreet lapel mic. Step 4. Renee freezes the accounts mid-transfer, simple on paper, dangerous in real life. That night, I sat in my garage surrounded by the same ledgers that had built my life. Each one proof that I'd done things the right way, with sweat, not shortcuts. Now I'd use the same discipline to take my son apart one transaction at a time. Cal stopped by after work, carrying a flash drive and 2 cups of diner coffee. "Everything's ready," he said. "Wire tracking, timestamps, even remote screen capture. The second he moves $1, it's federal evidence." "Good," I said, "because I'm going to give him the chance." "To what? Bury himself?" "Exactly." We rehearsed my lines, my tone, even when to look surprised. I was going to walk into that conference room like a tired old man asking forgiveness. And Derek, blinded by his own ego, would hand me every proof I needed. When Cal left, I poured another drink and stared at the March 14th circle on my calendar. It glowed like a countdown. Eleanor's picture sat on the mantel, her soft smile frozen in time. "You always said teach by example," I whispered. Well, he's about to learn. March 14th arrived with a still, heavy air, one of those Arizona mornings where the sunlight feels more like a spotlight. I wore my best jacket, the one Eleanor bought me for our 25th anniversary. Cal insisted it made me look respectably pitiful, which was exactly the role I needed to play. Derek's client presentation was being held at the Hilton Conference Hall, the kind of place where lies get PowerPoint transitions and applause. The sign outside read, "Green Financial Group, Wealth Made Simple." I walked in just before it started. Derek was already at the podium, grinning like a politician. Rows of investors filled the room, men and women in crisp suits clutching glossy brochures. On the screen behind him, charts danced upward in impossible perfection. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this quarter's success proves what happens when vision meets precision. Our new portfolio model, built on liquid assets, continues to outperform projections. And we couldn't have done it without the trust of early investors like my father." The crowd clapped politely. I smiled faintly and took a seat in the back row. My lapel mic hummed softly. Cal was listening from his office. Agent Valdez had a live feed of the presentation. Derek spotted me. His grin sharpened. "There he is," he said. "The man who taught me hard work, though I prefer smarter work these days." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "Dad, why don't you stand up? Tell everyone how proud you are of what your money built." The room turned to me. I stood slowly, the picture of frailty. "I am proud, son," I said. "Proud that I raised someone who knows how to take what isn't his and make it look legal." The laughter froze. Derek's smile twitched. "Always the comedian," he said lightly. "Folks, my dad's old school. Doesn't always get the new models." He clicked to the next slide. Graphs labeled Green Legacy Accounts. Cal's voice came through my earpiece. "We've got it. He's live streaming internal data, triggering wire authentication now. Copying everything." Derek's laptop pinged. "Final transfer authorized," he announced. "Just a small portfolio shuffle before the end of quarter." Valdez's calm voice cut through my other earbud. "We see it. Transaction ID confirmed. That's our smoking gun, Mr. Green." I smiled faintly. "Son," I said, "you might want to refresh that screen." He frowned, confused. Then his projector glitched. The graphs froze and a red alert box popped up. Account access restricted. Federal review pending. What the hell? He muttered, tapping keys. You always told me to modernize, I said softly. Guess I finally did. Physical proof #1. A full recording of Derek's presentation, his live transfer, and the freeze notification. All captured, logged, and legally time-stamped. As I left the hall, Derek's voice cracked behind me. Dad, what did you do? Just checking my balance, I said. The next 48 hours were the kind of storm you don't hear coming until it's already overhead. By Monday morning, every one of Derek's investors had received an identical notice from the Internal Revenue Service. Your investment portfolio is part of an ongoing federal investigation into fraudulent financial activity. And by noon, the Arizona Tribune broke the story. Local financial advisor accused of embezzling elderly father's pension in $2.1 million Ponzi scheme. Derek's firm went silent. Phones off, website down, investors panicking. Cal called me first thing that morning. You're going to want to watch Channel 7 at 10, he said. When the broadcast came on, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and Eleanor's photo watching over me. There he was, my son, stepping out of his office as cameras flashed and microphones swarmed. Mr. Green, did you forge your father's signature? Is it true you used retirement funds to finance shell companies? Did your father report you to the IRS? Derek tried to keep calm, but you could see it in his eyes. The panic that comes when lies start collapsing faster than you can patch them. I drove downtown that afternoon. The street outside his office was chaos. Reporters, investors, lawyers. Cal met me by the corner. They served the subpoenas an hour ago, he said. Federal audits frozen every account in his name. You did it, Walt. No, I said. He did. Inside, the office looked gutted, papers shredded, drawers open. Derek sat behind his desk, pale, shaking, tie undone. He looked up when I stepped in. You ruined me, he said, voice cracking. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly, I said. I taught you what theft costs when it comes home. He stood, slamming his fist on the desk. They're calling me a criminal. Then stop acting like one. He stared at me, breathing hard. For the first time, I didn't see the confident advisor. I saw the boy I used to pull out of fights at school, the kid who couldn't admit when he'd gone too far. Dad, please, he said. You can fix this. Tell them you gave me permission. I could, I said quietly, but then I'd be lying, and I raised you to know better. Cal stepped in behind me, holding up his badge. Derek Green, you're under federal review. I suggest you get a lawyer. Reporters were already crowding the lobby when we walked out. Cameras flashed, questions flew. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. By the evening broadcast, the story had spread nationwide. My son's face, my family name, now headlined a federal fraud case. And as shameful as that was, it was also justice. Because sometimes the truth has to burn everything before it lights the way out. When men like Derek start losing control, they don't repent, they retaliate. 2 days after the subpoenas, a courier knocked on my door holding an envelope thicker than a Bible. Inside was a petition for guardianship, filed by Derek Green against his own father. He was claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my finances. Said I'd been confused, emotionally unstable, and manipulated by third parties with intent to defame him. I read the words 3 times before laughing out loud. He'd stolen nearly $1 million from me, and now he was trying to steal my sanity. I called Cal. You're not going to believe this one. He read the petition and whistled. Classic move. He's trying to flip the narrative. If he proves incompetence, the fraud case crumbles. Then we make sure it doesn't. Agent Valdez joined the call, calm as ever. We've seen this tactic. It's desperation. We'll counter with proof of cognitive capacity. Audio recordings, timestamps, documents you compiled yourself. He's cooked, Walter. Just let him keep talking. But Derek wasn't done talking. That night, my voicemail pinged with his voice again. Shaky, drunk, but venomous. You think this ends with a newspaper headline? You humiliated me, Dad. You think the IRS scares me? I've got friends. Real power. You're gonna regret crossing me. He didn't realize every word was being recorded, time-stamped, and automatically forwarded to Valdez's folder. Physical proof #2, threatening communications from a federal subject under investigation. By morning, she'd already drafted an additional report. Congratulations, Mr. Green. You just handed us a felony intimidation charge. I sat on the porch that afternoon watching the wind move across the gravel driveway. The same one Derek helped me pour when he was 14. The same kid who used to say, "Someday I'll make you proud, Dad." Now the only thing he was building was his own cell, Megan called that evening, voice trembling. "Dad, Derek says you're being used by the government." "No, honey," I said softly. "They're just finally using the law the way it was meant to be used." I could hear her trying to hold back tears. "Is it true? He forged your name." "It's all true." "Then I'm done defending him," she whispered. For the first time since it began, I wasn't alone. Cal texted later that night. "Court date set. IRS ready. He's going to walk into that hearing thinking he's the victim and walk out in cuffs." The trap was ready. All we had to do now was spring it. The guardianship hearing was held on a gray Thursday morning, the kind of day when the courthouse windows looked like mirrors, cold and unforgiving. I wore my only dark suit. Cal met me outside, carrying a folder thicker than Derek's entire case file. Agent Valdez stood nearby, calm as a sniper before a clean shot. "You ready, Walt?" Cal asked. "I've been ready since he signed my name for me." Inside, Derek sat at the petitioner's table, all confidence and cologne. He even managed a smile when I walked past. His lawyer, a slick man with a practiced smirk, leaned toward him. "Just follow my lead. He'll crack." Judge Warner entered, an older woman with eyes that missed nothing. The court clerk called the case. Derek Green versus Walter Green, petition for guardianship and financial control. Derek's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client's father has shown a pattern of financial confusion and erratic behavior, leading to false accusations against his own son. We have evidence of cognitive decline." He gestured toward me like I was a museum exhibit. The judge nodded. "You'll have your chance to present. Mr. Green, you're self-represented." "No, Your Honor," said a voice from behind me. Ellen Graves, Cal's referral, the lawyer I hadn't seen in years, stepped forward with a neat binder. "I represent Mr. Walter Green, and we intend to prove the petitioner is the one suffering from ethical decay, not cognitive decline." You could feel the air change. Ellen began with the basics: my bank history, my property records, my tax filings, all precise, all current. Then she rolled in the heavy artillery. Physical proof, #1, the full video of Derek's investor presentation, complete with his dad's capital reallocation brag and the IRS freeze notification flashing behind him. Physical proof, #2, the threatening voicemail, Derek's voice dripping with arrogance and panic. Federal exhibits, IRS documentation confirming active investigation, corroborated by Agent Valdez herself, sitting in the witness row. When the voicemail played, Derek's face went white. His lawyer whispered something frantic, but it was too late. The judge leaned forward, pen tapping. "Mr. Green," she said slowly, "you filed to have your father declared incompetent while under active federal investigation for defrauding him." Derek stammered. "Answer the question." "I didn't know. You knew enough to forge his name." The gavel struck once. Petition denied. The court refers this matter to federal prosecution. Mr. Walter Green retains full financial autonomy. Mr. Derek Green, you will surrender your passport pending further investigation. The silence that followed was thunder. Ellen closed her binder. Cal grinned. Derek just stared at me, eyes glassy, lips trembling. "Dad," he whispered. "Please." "You should have said please before you hit submit," I said quietly. Outside, the reporters were waiting again. But this time, the story wasn't about the old man who lost everything. It was about the father who took it all back. With receipts. The morning they came for Derek, the desert air was sharp and clean, like it had been scrubbed just for the occasion. I was sitting on my porch, sipping black coffee, when Cal's text came through. "It's happening." 10 minutes later, the convoy rolled down the street. 2 unmarked sedans and 1 black SUV. Agent Valdez led the team herself, jacket crisp, badge glinting under the sun. They found Derek at his condo on Highland Avenue, pacing the living room with his phone in his hand. When they cuffed him, he didn't fight. He didn't even look surprised, just tired, hollow, like someone who'd finally run out of versions of the truth to tell. The news hit by noon. Financial advisor arrested for defrauding father in $2.3 million scheme. The same outlets that once praised him for modern entrepreneurship were now calling him the cautionary tale of familial greed. Cal dropped by that afternoon with a small envelope. "Valdez wanted you to have this," he said. Inside was a signed letter of closure. All seized assets belonging to Derek Green have been liquidated and returned to rightful owner, Mr. Walter Green, per restitution order. Case closed. Below it, a note from Valdez's own pen. Sometimes justice sounds like silence after years of noise. I set the letter on the kitchen table and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. A week later, Megan visited. She hugged me longer than she ever had before. "Dad," he called from county jail. He asked if I'd tell you he's sorry. "What did you say?" "That maybe he should tell you himself when he means it." She handed me a small box. Inside was Eleanor's old watch, the one Derek pawned last year without telling me. Megan had found it among the seized property. "Guess some things come back after all," she said. That night I stood in the garage again, surrounded by my ledgers, records of a life built the hard way. No shortcuts, no theft, just work and time. Outside, the desert wind pushed softly against the door, carrying with it a strange peace. I thought about the last thing Derek said to me before they took him away. "Dad, I just wanted to be you." Maybe that was the saddest part. He'd tried to steal what he could have earned. As I locked up for the night, I looked at Eleanor's photo and whispered, "He finally learned the lesson, honey. The expensive way." Then I turned off the light. Epilogue, approximately 900 characters. 6 months later, I sold the last of my stock shares and donated half to a scholarship fund in Eleanor's name for single parents studying finance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Cal got promoted to senior auditor. Megan came by every Sunday for dinner again. The silence between us had turned into something softer. Understanding. One evening she asked, "Do you ever think you went too far, Dad?" No, I said. I think I finally went far enough. Because revenge isn't always about rage. Sometimes it's just about balance. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U60 USA, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.